Welcome to Tech in the Right Direction, the podcast. Let's take tech in the right direction to drive social change and close the employment, pay, and culture gap for women in technology. This podcast is focused on helping turn ideas into action to create opportunities for women to advance in the dynamic technology industry. I hope this podcast will inspire and motivate you to encourage more women and girls to seek or grow a career as a woman in technology. Stories about the journey of amazing women in this tech field starts right now. Welcome to Tech in the Right Direction, the podcast. Today I'll be speaking with Kati Quigley. Kati leads the global industry audience marketing team at Microsoft. She is responsible for the buyer journey across 7 primary industries, providing insights and innovation. Kati drives marketing engagements and brings industry solutions to life by leveraging events, web, press, analysts with our customers, and partners across the globe for each key industry. Prior to Microsoft, Kati spent over a decade in Washington, D.C. area as a director of meetings, marketing, and professional development for various trade associations. She's had the responsibility for logistics and content for conferences held around the world, ranging from 10 to 15,000 people. Kati is active in speaking at professional conferences on topics ranging from marketing to leadership to women in technology. She's a graduate of the University of Washington, has 2 teenage sons that play baseball, football, and golf, and she's a lifelong sports enthusiast, trail runner, and loves leading an active lifestyle in the Pacific Northwest. Welcome to the show, Kati. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm so excited to be here.
Great. Let's get started. So, Kati, as a woman in tech, can you share with us your career journey and how you got to where you are today?
Yes, I'm happy to share my journey. It's a little bit of a curvy journey that I've had with a few left turns. I started my career out of college with the intent to be in events and be in marketing, but for nonprofit organizations. And so, although I'm from Seattle, I moved to Washington, D.C. and started working for professional associations and trade associations. It was fascinating. It was great, first of all, just to move to someplace different than where I grew up. And so that was a learning experience on its own. But I loved working for associations where our members were global. I got to travel the world, meet people from all different cultures, and really get a great experience in my 20s. My intent was to continue along that path and become an executive director of an association. And then I got a call from Microsoft. A friend of mine knew of a new job that was being created to manage the event marketing team for Microsoft. And given my passion was around events, and it gave me the chance to move home. I had 2 little babies at the time. I took that chance and that opportunity and was so excited about it. It was a dream opportunity, quite honestly. And I did that for almost 10 years. And then I realized, it was time to do something different. It was time to either leave Microsoft and continue on my path in events, or to stay at Microsoft and expand my breadth of responsibility and skills. And so I moved to the partner channel. I had no idea what I was doing walking into it and how much I was going to love it. What I did know is that there was a big event that I was responsible for, in addition to several other responsibilities across marketing. And so to me, it was a good growth opportunity where I still got to be doing something around events, but then doing more. What I didn't realize in that is how amazing the partner community and the partner channel was at Microsoft. I had not had that exposure. And it has changed me, quite honestly. It's changed me forever, that experience, because of the relationships that I was able to build, the insights and the front row view I got to have of the partners' passion for our customers, for our products, for our solutions, and just the work that they do. And so that to me is truly one of my highlights of my career at Microsoft. But I was a marketer sitting in a sales organization, so needed to continue kind of on that path. Still so happy at Microsoft. Satya had just become CEO the year before, and I realized that it was a culture that was shaping up to be one that I absolutely wanted to continue to be part of. And so instead of leaving Microsoft, I stayed and moved back into marketing, and this time in a product marketing group. And so it's an odd journey for most people working at a technology company that it took me almost 15 years to work in a product group. So that was a bigger shift also that I realized. Got to do a lot of work with engineering, got to learn more about pricing, business models, go-to-market strategies for products, roadmaps, and so forth. And so I absolutely loved that experience. Business applications was the product area. It's a growing one. It was a smaller one than Azure and Microsoft 365, but it was one that was up and coming. And so it was kind of being a startup in an enterprise company. And so that experience was invaluable to me. But then it came to a point where I thought, okay, it's time for, I'm not a core product marketer, but I love marketing. And so I switched over to industry marketing. My first day at work was, I think, March 11th in 2020. And so the world was turning upside down. I didn't realize it. So my first day of work was our shelter in place. There are people on my team. I've been there for almost 6 months now that I still have not met in person. The job completely changed, from day one because of what had happened. Moving from, how is it that we help our customers rapidly transform to be able to meet the demands of their customers, to stay afloat, to survive this unprecedented event that has happened across the globe. And then also, quite a large portion of this job is around our industry event engagement. So how do we rethink that completely, because no one is meeting face to face? So absolutely a fun journey. Long answer, but it's been a journey that I didn't see what was ahead of me always, but it's every turn I've loved.
That is awesome. What a great journey. And you said curvy, but really just kept growing, And when you talk about that role that you had with partners, I can hear the passion in your voice, because you love working with partners, and every partner I know loves you and loves working with you. So that passion really comes out. And in your new role, very different times, and a lot of adaptability and flexibility and changing thoughts and vision in place to make things more remote. But it's really put us all into a very quick digital transformation mode. And, I read a stat that said 2 years of digital transformation has happened in 2 months. And that's just amazing, how when we have to change, we do.
It's very true. It is. It's part of my role the last couple of years, even when I switched over to industry, was to work on the digital transformation story for Microsoft. And when I started working on that last year, it was more about companies deciding whether or not they should, and how fast should they do that, and where should they start. And now it's just how quickly can we do this in a way that makes us still viable in our industries, in our, to our customers and so forth. So it's, that 2 months and 2 years worth in 2 months is incredible. It really is true when you look at what's happening.
And you see so much creativity from the channel, from the ecosystem, but just in the world. People have adjusted and changed their daily routines to adapt to this new normal. And it's fascinating to me to see that adaptation, to see that change, because, in training, we always do a lot with change management, because people are creatures of habit, and you want to do things the same way. But, when you're forced to do it, things happen and people do change. So it's been incredible, an incredible journey. So you've spent a lot of your career in marketing and responsible for large strategic events. And I've known you through, your running those events and leading those events. And I've always thought about this. How do you manage the stress and complexity that goes along with this role? Because we're in the training business, so we're always, putting on events. They're smaller events, but yours were such large scale and global events. Tell me some of your secrets. Tell me some of the ways that you've learned to manage that, complexity and stress.
Sure, I will. I absolutely do love events, and even though I'm, doing different things across marketing now, it's always, kind of in my heart and soul doing events, and I loved that kind of stress. And it's really funny because my husband and I will have these conversations because he's always been in sales, and I'm like, it would be so stressful to me to think that, there's this quota that I have to hit every month and every quarter, and I'm like, I just, that would be more stress than I would want. And he laughed. He's like, but the stress you have is just as great. It's just different. And so I think it's like it's the thing that kind of fits your go back to your passion of what are the things that you truly do, that where you thrive and you are very good at naturally, and then also from a ton of experience. And I started with smaller events obviously and worked my way up. But I think once you get to that scale, it's about building amazing teams around you and trusting them, because you can't be everywhere at every time and you can't control most things. And you have to trust that what you have put in place will be enough to create a really great experience, and then people fill in all the gaps. My very first job where I became a manager, I was in my 20s, and my manager at the time, his advice to me has stuck with me longer than anything else. And he said, hire people smarter than you. And that has been the best advice, quite honestly, as a manager, is to bring in people that know things you don't know. And so I have, very long-standing relationships with people that I've worked with over the years in different positions, and I bring them in because I know that they're really good at things that I'm not. And so that teamwork that then happens because everyone feels empowered and trusted and has value that they're bringing, creates kind of this magic of this ability to be able to make things happen, kind of that feel impossible, but they end up not being, because everybody is all in.
That's great. And that advice on hiring people smarter than you is such good advice. And people who complement the things that you don't do well. Not everybody does everything perfectly. So you have that complement on your team that makes a really big difference. I have a small story to share with you. I had a friend, a very, very best friend, and unfortunately, about 8 years ago, she passed away from cancer. But she always, when I was hiring people and running my business, she would ask me, are they bright? Are they smart? Because you don't need to be doing your work and their work as well. So she would always ask me that every time I talked about hiring somebody. And so after she passed away, we actually created a Bright Star Award that we give out every year in her honor, because she just, just that just resonated with me. And I remembered that when you were telling the story of, your boss. So it was kind of cool.
That's amazing. I literally just got chills. That's amazing. That's
I
incredible.
know. She was just an incredible person. So continuing on the topic of marketing, can you share some best practices around digital marketing? Digital marketing is becoming so popular, and it's such a big part of marketing today. What are some of the things that you've learned throughout your career and you implement on digital marketing that can benefit our listeners?
Right. That's a great question. It is really marketing now, digital marketing, because especially in these days when face-to-face is not really possible. It's an art and a science you've got the science part of it where data drives everything. And so having good systems in place or the ability to gather data about either your current customers or your target customers is so important, to be able to do that in a way that's automated and simple. And then the next step to that is taking that data and driving insights. And so really spending the time to understand what is going on in the market, what's going on, with your targeted customers. What are they challenged with? What are they trying to work through? How is it that what you're doing will bring value to them? And then so in a digital marketing scenario, you tell that story, and it's about storytelling, and it's telling about, people that maybe like the customers you're looking for, and success challenges they had, and then success that they found because of your product, because of your service, because of whatever you're offering. Because people always want to hear a good story, and it doesn't always have to be, a story of 100% success. And sometimes it's better to tell a story. If you look at movies and theater, there's always some conflict and there's always some struggles. And so how is it that you can tell a story of someone that went through that and you were able to help that customer, bring them value? Because then others can picture themselves with that. And so if you have that data, understanding your customer, and then you're able to tell a story that counters it, I think the other piece is engaging. It can't be a one-way conversation. And so, what creative way, and it doesn't have to be overly complicated, what creative way can you have where you have these two-way conversations with your customers in a digital way, whether it's small communities, large communities, any sort of back and forth that you can create is really important as well.
That's awesome. So, having good data, telling it in a story, and getting engagement, I think those are so powerful. I know storytelling is so important in everything that we do because it really creates that engagement as well. Because people relate to other people, or other people's challenges might be the same as the listeners, and so these are great points and really great advice. So, Katie, you and I are both passionate about women and girls in technology. I know that. Um, so, one of my big missions and goals is to figure out ways to bridge the culture, pay, and employment gap for women. What are your thoughts on that? What are things that we can do? And I know you're always a big proponent and passionate about this topic. So, what are some of the things that we can do to bridge that culture, pay, and employment gap for women?
It's a great topic. It's one that we have made some progress on, but there's still so much more that needs to be done. And I think you said it. It's the culture is the key to it. Is that you can make some tactical changes in companies, but if it's not core to the culture, that belief in equity and inclusion and diversity of ideas, then not going to it's not going to be completely fulfilled, that ability to have that equity across the organization, across the people in the organization. So I think it has to be at the core of the culture. And so I applaud, these larger companies that are working to drive that change in inclusion and equity. It's going to take some time just because it's, moving a big ship and, and turning it around. But I do see that happening. It's interesting, I think, even just this year when you think about social justice and, and it's, the focus being on the color of your skin being something that hadn't been talked about enough. And so I think it was kind of pushed under the rug and thinking we've made progress in that area. And now all of a sudden it's coming to light that really no progress had been made. And so what you're seeing there is that conversations are finally happening. It'll take a lot of time to get there, but at least people are finally feeling more comfortable to have that conversation. And so I think that's the same. It goes for women and girls in particularly in technology where it's been more male dominated. I think that, starting early with girls in school is important also to give them the confidence that they can do anything, and that they can major in areas like math and science that normally was not something that was had a lot of girls in those classes. And so giving them the culture in schools that it doesn't matter if you're a girl or a boy, no class is closed to you, that you can do anything that you want. And so I think, if you can capture their attention and confidence when they're, middle school and then going into high school, I think that will drive some change long term. And then I think just continuing to chip away and have really open conversations in the corporate world, I think the combination of those two will get there. It's not getting much better right now, but I believe that it will.
Oh, I think that's very true. I think we have this year, we've made a lot of progress on the DNI side. And I always, when I'm talking to organizations and they talk about DNI, I'm always curious about the why. Why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Because that, like you said, it's core to the culture. You have to believe it. You have to feel it in order to make it happen. So if you're just doing it because everybody's doing it, or you think this is what I should do, but I really don't believe in it, you're not going to make progress. It's not going to be successful. It really needs to go back to the core to say, why is this important? What do I believe, and how can I can make that happen? And when you do that, it changes the entire structure, because now you look at every piece of your organization and say, okay, is it equal? Is it fair? You know, what does the culture look like? What does the pay look like? All of those things come in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're right. We have a long way to go, but we're making progress. And girls, again, passion for me as well is, girls 8 to 13, we need to get them aware. We need to build their confidence. We need them to see themselves, tell stories, to see themselves in those roles, so that it's not a question of, if, but a question of just when they're going to get there. So great thoughts. Um, as a woman yourself in technology, what are some challenges you've faced, and what did you do to overcome them? I'm sure our listeners can gain some learnings out of that, because we all go through a lot of challenges, in our career. Can you share some of yours?
Sure. I think the biggest one, and part of it is just my nature, being leading as an introvert, but part of it too, I think, is the environment. Sometimes is the being getting your voice heard, and I think part of it is up to each individual to make sure that they are speaking up at the times that they need to be, and they have that courage, and that's something that I continuously work on, is that courage to speak up when am wavering whether I should or not, to speak up more often and have that initiative more often than not. And then it's also the support and the of your peers that are around you. And I remember there was a point in time, it was probably 6 years ago, 7 years ago, where in the White House, there was a challenge of women's voices being heard. And it was a tactic that one of the senior leaders in the White House took, was to repeat another woman's comment. So, say you said something and then they just moved on with the conversation, I would jump in and say, as Jennifer had said,
Mm-hmm.
and so you reiterate it. And so it's making sure, because sometimes a woman might say something and then a man might say it 5 minutes later. I was like, that was such a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
So ensuring that your voice as a woman has been heard, having someone else reiterate it. And we actually tried that, and it worked. It was fascinating to do. There were some peers of mine that we did that experiment in a pretty big meeting, where we would, if one of us spoke up, the other would then echo it, maybe 2 or 3 minutes later, when it was appropriate, when it makes sense in the meeting, but just to see how that had an impact, and it actually did. It's fascinating.
I love that. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. I have to remember that, because having your voice heard as a woman sometimes is difficult. You need to be at the table. You need to have your voice heard at the table. And, just in my career, there's always that courage and confidence that sometimes you feel, oh, I can't do this, or I just don't know when to even say something. And then when I did say something in large meetings that were male dominated, like you said, somebody else, a man would say something and it would come off as their idea.
Yeah.
And so I love this tactic to repeat and reiterate what another woman has said. And I'm definitely going to practice that. That's great. Um, I know you've spoken at many conferences about work life balance. Share with our listeners, and especially me, because I need help in this area, any best practices or secrets that you have to balance that and, not get overworked or burned out easily.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process, that's for sure. Never ending to make sure that happens. And I've even noticed now with us working from home is that the hours get longer, and you just people are working longer hours because they don't have to commute, and so that's unfortunate that we're replacing a commute with more work. But I think part of it was just survival when we first were the world was shifting so rapidly. But there's a few things that have helped me through the years. One is that I had someone on my first team at Microsoft that he was super passionate about work-life balance, and he changed the words to a balanced life works. And I absolutely love that because it takes out, if you look at work-life balance, work and life is, cut in half, it's divided. And so you think that those two things are separate, but they're actually not, especially in, these days when everything is online. And so a balanced life works means that some days work is going to dominate, and that's okay. It's part of the deal. It's your job. It's just how things are, and work needs to get done. But then you need to take those times when your life outside of work then takes the precedence. And so it's, these peaks and valleys that over time, it won't be every single day that you have this balance, but it will be, if you look at a curve throughout a year, that you've had a balance and you've done things that you're passionate about. The other thing that I always remember is that I had an amazing manager that said to me one time and said, if you are going to miss something for one of your kids' school activities, if you're going to say no to a trip or an adventure, whatever it is, you are the only person that knows what you just gave up to go to a meeting or to work on a project. No one else has any idea what that meant to you. Like your son's baseball game, if you say, okay, fine, I'll go to the meeting and skip the baseball game, you're the only one that understands how much that meant to you, your family, and so forth. And so when making those decisions, you have to think, if I miss a meeting versus me missing my son's baseball game, what's going to have a bigger impact on me longer term, and how is it that I can make this happen? And that just struck such a chord with me that I made different decisions after that because of it. Because in 3 months from now, no one's going to remember that I missed that meeting. And 3 months from now, my son's going to remember that I missed him pitching at a baseball game.
Mm-hmm. No, that's so true, and I've never thought of it that way. But because when you make that sacrifice, sometimes you feel like everybody understands the level of pain you're going through, and I've never really thought about that. But when you said that, only and only you pay the price for that. Nobody else.
Right. No one's patting you on the back saying, good job for missing.
Right. That's great. That is really good. So always think through, what impact is that going to have? Missing the meeting or missing my son's baseball game. So, yeah, I love that. That's great. Well, this has been so much fun. So, in closing, what advice would you give to a woman who is considering a career in technology, not really sure if this is where she wants to go or if this is an area that might be great for her to try? What advice would you give her?
That's a great question. I think, there's a lot of opportunities now for internships I think that exercising your curiosity, you talked about curiosity before, that's the thing that I always interview for is someone is curious and wants to ask questions. There are, a lot of people out there that are happy to, sit for a half an hour, talk to them about their career, talk to them about their experiences, how they made that journey, the good and the bad about it. I think just keeping your eyes open and watching and asking and listening, and then trying a job in this industry. It doesn't have to be for a massive technology company. There's so many amazing technology companies out there, and that's what I loved about the partner community is just the breadth and the depth of opportunity that was there. You can always change. It's not a lifelong commitment when you go into a job like that. It's just a way to test the waters and see if you like it and see if you don't. Ask questions about culture before you go in to see if, how progressive they are on their culture. I think that also matters as well.
Yeah, culture, I think, is so important for the fit, right? But tech industry has so many different roles, like you said, that you don't have to be a coder, right? So as a woman, if you want additional freedom from, being able to work at home as well as getting paid well, I think this is a great industry to consider. So that's great advice. Katie, as always, it's such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much. And I look forward to having you again on a show in the future.
Jennifer, thank you so much for this opportunity. I love talking to you as well. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Tech in the Right Direction. Please take a minute to subscribe or follow so that you never miss an episode. Also, don't forget to like, share, and comment. Thank you. See you next week.
As your organization continues to embrace and adopt new technologies, does your team have the skills required to make the most of your investments? Directions Training offers IT professional and end-user training for the most popular solutions today, including Microsoft 365, Azure, AWS, Cisco, Citrix, VMware, and much more. Our flexible delivery methods and full customized offerings make sure that you get the training you need just the way you need it. In person, virtual, on demand, or through a blended approach. Success is a journey. Ask for directions. Visit us at www.directionstraining.com for more information today. From IT skill enhancements to end-user adoption training, Directions Training is your resource to help optimize the effectiveness of your technology investments. Over 500,000 students have taken advantage of our wide selection of technology and business training solutions, covering the most popular applications today, such as Microsoft 365, Azure, Windows 10, and more. As a podcast listener, we invite you to take advantage of an exclusive offer. Receive 30 days of free access to our on-demand courses for IT professionals or end users. Visit us at www.directionstraining.com/podcast to claim this offer today. Hurry, this offer is only available for a limited time. Success is a journey. Ask for directions.